Alright everyone, we start off today obviously talking about the sabotage of the Nordstream pipelines. Looks like both of them got scuttled. The other day you had Swedish seismologists weighing in and saying, look, we registered several explosions, probably in the 100 kilogram of TNT range, and now there's a bunch of gas bubbling up from the pipeline that was juiced up to begin with, and it's I like how Reuters frames it as an environmentalism issue, completely ignoring the political ramifications and the fiscal ramifications of what just happened. Oh, well, we're not exactly sure how this is going to affect the climate, but it can't be good, all that natural gas bubbling up into the atmosphere. That one is a little bit beyond the pale. Anyway, I wanted to analyze my thoughts on Whodunnit, and then going forward, of course, the fallout from what happened at Nord Stream. So, for those that don't understand, Nord Stream 1 is gas deliveries from Russia to Germany. Nord Stream 2 is basically there and it's ready to go. It wasn't on at the time. I don't think that one bubbled up because there wasn't anything in it. It uses gas pressure to advance the gas through the pipeline, but was planned as an additional route for energy from Russia to Germany and therefore to the broader EU area. And the economic fallout, of course, is that with the pipelines damaged, it would take an enormous amount of time, I would assume, to fix the leak, which could be quite large. We'll probably get underwater footage at some point, probably find a massive crater where a chunk of pipeline used to be. That means no gas from Nord Stream 1 to Europe and or Nord Stream 2. And that means that the energy prices in Europe will remain high throughout the winter, probably, which is exactly the worst time that you want natural gas to be throttled, because people in Europe are already suffering from significant inflation, energy shortages, and a higher and higher cost of living in general. You can see it here reflected in prices in the Netherlands. Can't even imagine how bad it is in Germany itself. The Netherlands has a little bit more of the renewable side of energy to fall back on. Germany keeps closing its nuclear plants. Belgium is following through doing the same. It's complete insanity the way in which they're handling their energy crisis. I would say the U.S. is doing the same. As he mentioned just the permitting reform that he was going to insert into the bill there, he's backed off on that. The GOP is stymieing him. By the way, potentially problematic. I do not support Mitch McConnell and the others blocking that because it was the one part of the bill that would have made sense. Link in the description, archived of course, and there are 1,000 different analyses of this as well. Here's who I think done it. Or rather, here's a list of suspects. We've got to be like Nick Valentine here. Yes, gumshoes, yeah, put on your reading glasses and look at this dossier, yeah. The first possibility is Russia did this. And we know that it's sabotage. All the evidence points towards it. I don't think this was an accident of some sort. If it is, it's like a 1 in a billion chance occurrence. The first possibility is that it's a fuck you by Russia to Europe. Ha ha, no gas for you, enjoy your high prices, butt the fuck out of our business, we're rolling into Ukraine, there's nothing you can do about it. We can sell the natural gas elsewhere anyway. Sort of a symbolic severing of the attempted fiscal rapprochement that Europe and Russia engaged in for years. The idea was that by taking up a huge amount of Russian energy, natural gas specifically, you could get rid of the nuclear, you could get rid of the coal power. Those plants are now being fired back up, I would note. So thank you, Germany, for your grand energy policy. Really wise decision making. Sort of a symbolic severance by the Russians of that rapprochement, telling them, we're not going to negotiate with you. We're not going to give you energy. Fuck your energy. We don't need your money. We'll just ship it to China or India or something anyway. We're making an eastward shift. By the way, that would be a massively symbolic move. A Russia that for several decades had been moving more westward had been attempting to sort of fit in with the Western sphere, saying, well, that's clearly not working, but there are these other major players. They're, rich in resources, but India doesn't have a huge amount of natural gas or a lot of oil wells. China has quite a few energy stocks capable of being mined out, but they're trying to do their green revolution thing for tourism purposes, so they need oil and gas too. We'll just sell to them. We make a few cents less per unit, but we don't need your money. We're capable of making do with our own. I consider this to be an unlikely possibility. It would be a symbolic move more than anything because Russia already controls the spigot on these pipelines, having helped invest in building them in the first place, along with Germany that manages the pipelines generally. Russia is capable of closing a goddamn valve and depressurizing the gas anyway. They've been doing so since they invaded Ukraine with great glee. I imagine Putin sitting there smirking when he sees the European news reports. Oh my god, natural gas prices are up 300% month over month. It's going to be a dark, long winter, and of course, you're a few days away from October. That's unfortunately what you're going to get now. I'm asking myself, other than the symbolic nature of that, which would be standard Putin, admittedly, what do you gain from blowing the pipeline and therefore removing your own leverage that you've already been using for diplomatic purposes, unless you saw no diplomatic solution anyway? I don't think Putin has reached that particular point. The only other option for blaming Russia, which is what the Western media immediately did, that seems like astroturfing to me. It's a little bit sus, bro. No cap for real. The only other purpose to Russia doing that basically is to try to get Westerners to blame some other party. So Biden a few days ago was remarking on Nord Stream itself, and so it's a false flag by the Russians to try to get Westerners to turn against their leadership. That fits in, I think, too closely with the more Russia narrative. The Russian disinfo, MAGA is Russia, Meloni is Russia, the British Tory party is Russia sort of thing, which we know isn't true. And because it fits in so well with that particular deep state line of propaganda, I think that's bullshit. Another possibility is that it was blown up by the Germans and or the UK to stop it being used as leverage in negotiations to force the issue. I think this is possible. It's well within the technological means of the German or the UK to do this. You would have had to have sent a drone or divers down to deliver a charge and blow the pipeline, and it worked. They have the capability of operating in those waters in a subtle manner. It'd be interesting to see. Do we have any like ship transmissions or radar signatures or anything that would show us what ship was generally there at the time? Of course, I don't think the pipelines are too far offshore. Of course, a smaller vessel might have been used to deliver a couple of divers. I don't know. The logistics of it aren't that difficult, even though that's a hefty shipping lane area. So I think somebody would have noticed that ship that doesn't have any flag on it. Looks a little sus, bro. No cap for real. The third possibility, and I think the most likely, is that the United States just blew the Nord Stream pipeline in order to undercut it being used as leverage, number one, to try to force the energy issue, number two, to keep the Germans from ever buckling and doing a rapprochement thing with Russia in order to keep the aid flowing to Ukraine. And it's possible Ukrainian saboteurs would be a remote possibility. I'm just thinking to myself, they'd be traveling over land or by plane, I guess, from Kiev, some 007 style agents, put on their frog suits and then get on an unmarked ship or something in order to pull this off. They would have to deliver the explosive beforehand. It's possible, but it would still require the help of an intel agency in one of those countries. Germany, maybe the Swedes, although I can't imagine they would be doing that, or the United States, or the British, or French, or something like that. It's not clear right now. The only thing we know is the pipeline's been damaged, is no longer, at the moment, functional. It will take a very long time to repair, and so at the moment, Russia's deprived of leverage, which it may have done of its own accord because it doesn't need it anymore or thinks it doesn't need it. It could have been done by the U.S. We did have remarks by Biden months ago to the effect that Nord Stream would not go through if there was a war in Ukraine, if Russia invaded. This was before the invasion itself, when they were drawing up on the border. You'll remember that many months ago. And Biden said that quite clearly. Well, it won't go through. But Mr. President, how are you going to do? The Germans control the pipeline on the other end. What the fuck are you going to do about it? Well, don't worry. We can make it work. We've got ways of doing that. In which case, it would be a major act of war, a huge escalation. By the way, if anyone but Russia or Germany happened to scuttle the pipeline, it would be you'd be another few seconds closer to midnight, I think. People should be concerned about this, number one, especially Europeans, by the way. Number two should be asking questions. Where's the evidence of who actually did this? What hard evidence do we have of the parties involved, and what are the ramifications? If it was Russia, it's very concerning. It means that they don't care to parlay with Europe anymore. They've said fuck it. That means that they're going to go all in Ukraine, they're going to throw their weight around, and they've decided to make an Asian pivot, thus escalating the new Cold War. That would be concerning. If a European power did it other than Germany, it's also very concerning. What if this is the British attempting to throw their weight around? What if it's the French trying to do this? What if it was a Ukrainian saboteur? That would bring you closer to a more hostile war between Russia and Ukraine. It would give a cause for the Russians to really go hard and could escalate things. If it was Germany, then Germany is making an imperialistic move, throwing its capabilities over the rest of Europe, by the way, fucking other European nations in the process by scuttling a gas pipeline simply because they have nominal control over one end of it. And if it was the US, you have a nuclear state scuttling energy infrastructure used by another nuclear state to feed energy to an allied state that's directly in the NATO sphere, namely the Germans, over a nation, Ukraine, that's not even part of any formal alliance with any NATO structure. All of these, it doesn't even matter who blew the pipeline. In any case, it's an escalation, and we know that it's almost certainly sabotage, because the idea of coincidence or natural disaster in this particular event is pretty remote. Someone's shilling somebody else. We're just not sure who conducted a false flag attack the other day, thus depriving Europe of the gas that it needs to go through an already dark winter. That's about all. Peace out.